So it's January and it's the start of the year, which means let's get those seed boxes out. Let's start sowing seeds. So today I'm going to show you some seeds that you can sow in January to start off that season right, get some seeds in the soil, and also one bonus seed that you probably haven't thought about doing, but it's 3/4 of a seed. So first off, let's talk about some alliums, some onions, some shallots and some leeks. Now you can start onions off in sets. I did some overwintering, but you can also start some now from seed. Now seed is actually better because they're less prone to bolting, especially the red ones. So the varieties I'm going to be sowing are Globe and Ailsa Craig. I'll pop them on the screen here now. And for my red varieties, I'm going to be doing Red Brunswick and also Red Baron. Now, like I said, red onions from set are known for bolting. It's a gamble. Out of 10 sets, you might get 1 or 2 that might come true, but you get a lot of loss. And as much as you can chop them up and use them straight away, for storing, you want those red onions to really come true to themselves. So by growing them from seed, you're guaranteed to get a good harvest of red onions. So that's my onion selections for this year. Now on top of onions, you can grow shallots. Now these are perfect for adding to gravies. They're sweeter and they're more delicate in flavour. So if you don't want that sharp tang, shallots are the one for you, and they store better as well. Now the ones I'm going to be doing from seed are banana shallot. I'm also going to grow them from bulb as well, and they will come before the seeds, but I want to get some seeds in, so I'm going to be doing the Zabroon shallots, and I'm also going to be doing 2 red varieties. I'm going to be doing ones called Red Florence. They are actually beautiful. They're very sweet. You grow them like spring onions, and you can either harvest them beforehand or let them bulb up, and they do a beautiful gravy from them. And another red variety I'm going to be doing is called Red Scarlet. Now this one's new to me, but I've been told that it competes with the Red Florence, and I want to compare them this year and next year. One will be going and one will be staying. So the other option is shallots. That's shallot. And thirdly, leeks. Now, some people might say it's a bit too early for leeks, but I've always sown some in January and then the rest then at the end of February for the second flush. So my first flush will be Blue Soleils, Stromboli, Below Zero, and also Pabella. Now these are some new varieties and I found that the bluer leeks tend to last longer and they love that cold temperature, so they're perfect for my climate. So yeah, if you want to start something off a little bit early, start some leeks off. I'll be growing some in module, and then my main leeks I'll be sowing directly in the polytunnel like I do every year. I do 1 row of each, let them just do their thing in the back of the polytunnel, and then when I need them later on then in spring, I then take them out and then plant them straight out into the garden. So yeah, maybe think about starting some leeks off now, and you can even harvest them smaller like a spring onion and use them in salads and also in things like sauces and also in stir fries. They're perfect for that. So maybe start some leeks off. Now the sprouts have done marvellous in this bed, and there's still a few hanging on and also some purple sprouting broccoli, but it won't be long before these will be coming out the bed and I want something to go straight back in, and the perfect thing for you is some brassicas. I already sowed some all year round cauliflowers in the polytunnel to see how they would do over winter and whether or not they'll be ready before I need to plant out in there. But I'm going to be planting out some more all year round cauliflowers and also some cabbages soon as well. Now the perfect thing for this bed would be some summer cabbages. Now this year I'm going to be doing Greyhound, the old favourite. I do Greyhound every single year, and if you haven't tried them, they're conical in shape and the flavour is actually beautiful, and they're very reliable cabbages. I'm also going to be doing one called Mozart at the end of January. Now they will all go into this bed. I think I'll put in here about maybe 8 to 10 cabbages. I'm also going to be doing some red varieties as well. I'm going to be doing Red Rookie F1. I'm also going to be doing the old favourite Red Drumhead. But I'm going to be doing a new variety which apparently does better than Red Drumhead. So we'll see what happens there. It's called Fuego. Now I'm going to be growing all 3 of those, and the good thing about cabbages, they're high in vitamin C. They're beautiful on the table, especially in summer. You cannot have a nice cooked dinner in summer without having a nice summer cabbage on it. And lastly, there is an extra cabbage that I thought I might put into one of the beds. Is primo. Now I've done primo cabbages in the past and they've done really, really well, but on different plots. So I might try the primo cabbages up here as well, see how they get on, and if so, they'll be on my list for next year as well. So I'm going to do a few primo cabbages as well. Now next on my list, and I swore I wasn't going to do it this year, and I still might buy some plants, is chili seeds and peppers. So I'm going to be keeping to the more medium heat on the chili side. I'm going to be doing things like jalapenos, cayenne, and also basket of fire. I found those are perfect for me. They're the right amount of size. I get plenty of them on the basket of fire. Whether or not I do it by seed yet or not, I have got some seed here, that is an option. But for you, look at now, I'd be sowing some chilies and also some peppers. Now peppers and chilies take a long time to grow, so you want to be starting them off in January, indoors in your house, in module trays, and then bringing them on. If you've got a heat mat and some lights, perfect, but keep them on a windowsill and grow them on. But let's talk about peppers. Now I love peppers. I love them in anything that I can cook them in. So this year, and every year before this, I've grown King of the North peppers. Now, King of the North peppers, they are a bell pepper, and I can't even tell you, they come later on in the season, which is perfect for me. I'm fed up with my tomatoes by this point. It's come to now September time, October. I'm harvesting all my peppers, ready to either use them for cooking or storing, and also it's perfect to add for when you're canning your tomatoes and your chilies. You can add those peppers in for more flavour in the sauces. So King of the North is my #1 pepper seeds for you to sow. I would absolutely recommend them. They are true to form and they grow so prolific. I had an abundance of them in the mini polytunnel. I'm going to be growing them in this tunnel this year. This is a new polytunnel, so there's a lot of pressure on this tunnel to do magic in here. So fingers crossed, King of the North peppers. Now in autumn, I showed you in a video, if you haven't seen that, go back and have a look at it, of all the things that I did in autumn, was sweet peas. Now sweet peas is one of the things on my allotment plot that is vital for pollinators, vital for scent, and also they look absolutely beautiful in a teepee dotted around your allotment or your garden. I would absolutely 100% recommend getting some sweet peas, and it's still time to grow some now. So I normally sow some in autumn for my first flush, and I'll start sowing sweet peas now in January, February, and then some directly out into the beds in March. So get yourself some sweet pea varieties. Make sure that you label them at the bottom of your teepee, because later on in the year you'll want to harvest that seed and keep the stock, because sweet pea seed is quite expensive, and for about £3 you get about 10 to 15 seeds, so you want to be keeping your stock. So keep as much as you want, and I've got to be honest, I'm tempted every year to order different varieties, and I've ordered some new ones this year. I've ordered like a new blue variety, and I've also ordered a new scented mix as well, which is coming in the next couple of days. So I'm excited to add those onto the allotment, and I like putting up a few teepees in areas where I'm going to be spending a lot of time, where I sat having a cup of coffee near the polytunnel so the wind blows the scent in. So you don't just want it to be a garden just for it looking nice and growing food for you. Make it smell good too. Now if you are going to sow sweet peas, grow them into a module tray. Try and get a deeper module tray if you can, because they do have a good root system. Sow them indoors on your windowsill at home, because I guarantee you mice and other rodents will come in and they will dig through and eat all your hard work, and you have to start again. So my advice would be is to take them home, sow them there, and when they start sprouting, don't leave them at home, because they'll become really, really leggy. Bring them over to your polytunnel or your greenhouse up high from the rodents, because believe me or not, they will still go down and eat that seed from underneath while that plant is still on top. So don't think just because there's a plant on top that that seed is now safe. So make sure that you protect those sweet peas with your life, because I tell you, the rodents will get them, and it happens every year to every gardener. Now next up is broad beans. Now if you didn't sow them in autumn, because a lot of people like to overwinter their broad beans so that they have them a bit earlier, however, you can still sow them now as well. And I've actually soaked a red variety in some water overnight. They've swelled a bit now, and then I'll take them out of this water and I'll plant them into this deep module tray which I got from Containerwise. This is a 15 cell, and I say it's a good 6 to 7 inches deep. This is perfect for broad beans. There's a lot of compost in here which will feed those plants until I need to plant them out, and I want them to be a good healthy size. Now broad beans are new to me and to the channel, but I'm willing to try something new, and crimson variety I think will also look nice. They got a nice floral on them. I like things that look nice on the plot as well. They're not just quite a boring flower. So I think the crimson variety will be good for me this year. So fingers crossed, I like broad beans. So if you haven't already, order some broad beans, soak them overnight in some nice lukewarm water at home, bring them over and plant them straight up. And again, just like the sweet peas, make sure those rodents don't go into them, because I promise you, they're after everything at this time of the year. So another thing as well is I'm going to be taking this home. I'm going to plant the broad beans out, take it home till they germinate, and then bring them up here, and then I'll bring them. I've got a raised shelf here, a floating shelf that I built in the polytunnel, and I can put it up as high as I want due to these chains, and it'll stop the rodents from climbing up onto here. So I will raise up higher, because they might jump from the staging onto here, because I tell you, they're cunning things. So the broad beans have all soaked now overnight. I'll disregard the water. So I've removed all the water, and what you'll see is they'll start growing little shoots on the broad beans. Now these are perfect. I will plant them now directly into this compost, about an inch or two down, and just cover them over. Now try and use the good seeds. Some of them might rot, so use the bigger broad beans that you can. Plant them up, and I promise you, it won't take long. With a bit of heat on these now, they'll start shooting up. So plant them straight in, you know, no fuss, no drama, and don't worry if you put the shoot down the wrong way where it's coming out. Nature always finds a way, so please don't stress about it. Normally it takes a couple more days for it to wiggle that seed back around, but I promise you, it'll find its way back up to the surface. I mean, it's been doing this for millions of years. It doesn't really need our help. We're just giving it a little bit of a help along by giving it a soak, really. But pop them in, just like so. Now I'm using this deep cell system because it will have a big root system, and also this compost will also feed this plant for a bit longer as well. Now if you plant them in a shorter one, it's not really going to work. You want them to be quite tall. If you haven't got a module tray like this, you can use toilet rolls, place them all inside a container so that they all hold each other in place. Fill them up with compost, plant the broad beans in, and also that cardboard then will actually start disintegrating. You could plant that straight out into the garden and it'll start rotting away, and the worms will love that as well. So if you want to be a bit more eco-friendly, you can use toilet rolls, and yeah, it does the same job. So I planted them all up, give it a little water now. And I'll be taking this home, putting it on a windowsill until they all germinate. And like I said, I'll bring it back in, raise it up high, and then hopefully we'll have some broad beans to plant out in a couple of weeks' time. And also, don't forget to label. Don't forget to label. It's one thing that a gardener always thinks, I'll remember what's in that tray. And I promise you, by the time you start sowing another tray and another tray, you'll forget, and you'll end up with all these plants that you don't even know where they are anymore. So make sure that you label all your plants. Get some labels, even if you're cutting them out of yogurt pots, or if you buy some labels. I had some labels for as gifts for Christmas. I like these little black ones here. I'll put a link to these in the description. And I like using a white pen. I just find that these last longer. They're a lot more sturdier. The white ones go really, really brittle for some reason. But I've had these and I've got plenty more, and you can wash them back off as well by using a bit of alcohol gel or something and rubbing them off, and you can reuse them year after year. These are actually a gift, but I've got plenty from last year ready to use this year. But if you haven't got labels, you can, like I said, you can cut up yogurt pots, use bits of plastic you've already had from packaging at Christmas. You know, use what you need, but make sure you label up your plants. Now next on my list is the salad box varieties. Now I've put this into a category where you want to start sowing things now that you can start having early spring salads, basically, because a lot of people think I'll start sowing them in spring. Now the main part that you want to have salads is in spring and summer, so get them off now. Like this is all spinach that I've sown in autumn, and look at it already, it's beautiful. I'm going to eat some of this, you know, straight off the plants, really, like this. So if you haven't already thought about it, maybe get some spinach. This one's called giant winter spinach. Now I will start eating it like this, and also I planted some out into the polytunnel, which hopefully will start putting on some size now. Now it's getting a little bit of sun in there. Now in this part about salads, it's going to be quite a lot of seeds, but I am putting it all down into a salad box. So like I mentioned, spinach, also do a pile of salad leaves now. You can grow them into the greenhouse or into your polytunnel or on your windowsill, and also things like spring onions. Now I tend to do the red varieties at the start of the year in January and then in February. So I'll be doing red Holland red, and also one of my favorites, lilia. It's a beautiful pinky purple spring onion, and it's so sweet and they're beautiful. Now there's a reason why I do those two first, and then I do the usuals, white Lisbon and all the green varieties then in February, March and onwards. Now spring onions you can sow all year round. I've got plenty in the beds. These are all my overflow ones. They're sulking a little bit because of the winter, but they'll perk and bulk up. So if you haven't already done some in autumn, always sow spring onions. Use it as a bit of a habit of doing some once a month, even if it's a couple in a little pot, because I promise you, you will need a constant supply of spring onions all year round. But there's a reason why I do the red ones. Now the North Holland red and the lilia will actually start bulbing up. So I want to get them when they're quite sweet and use them as spring onions, so I do them at the start of the year. They slow grow, and also they're perfect and they're ready for the start of spring while the others are carrying on growing. If I want to, then I can leave them in the bed and they can grow to a nice bulb at the bottom, a little bit like a banana shallot, but I like them when they're small and tender, so get some spring onions on there. Now also in the salad box section, think about things like basil, coriander. They're beautiful for adding into things as well. They give a nice bit of flavour, so sow some basil and coriander now as well. And many other herbs can be sown now as well on your windowsill. So the basil I'm going to be doing is a sweet basil called Genovese. I sow this every year, and this year I want to plan on putting a nice row of basil on either side of the tomatoes. They'll grow together, but I want to start them off now because they do take a bit of time to pick up. So yeah, maybe get some sweet basil Genovese. You can also sow some kales now, like the green curly kale or a red Russian kale. That's one of my favourites. Grow them for the nice tender small leaves. You don't need to grow them for big plants. A lot of people think that they need to grow all these plants like kales and cabbages for these huge massive plants, but you can actually grow your spare seeds off and use them for microgreens and also for tiny little plants to pick off the leaves to add to salads. So yeah, think about putting some kales in. Red Russian kale is absolutely beautiful. Those small, tiny, tender, sweet red leaves are lovely in a salad. You can also sow some beetroot now as well. Now we'll talk about beetroot in a second, but you can also grow the beet leaves for salads. Now they are lovely, they give it a nice texture, a nice sharp taste to your salad as well. So think about growing some Swiss chard as well is another one, but beetroot and Swiss chard leaves, put them on. If you don't like Swiss chard, grow them for the tiny plants like I said, and just use up your seed and put them into a salad. So it's January and you haven't sown your garlic, or you've sown all your garlic and you think, I've got a few spare left in the box. I have some here. I found these small bulbs in the back of the greenhouse. I should have planted them, but I've got plenty of garlic. I've got about 2, maybe 3 beds of garlic plus some in here. But I'm going to be using these now for green garlic. So if you haven't sown garlic, you can still grow some now. Put it out directly outside into the soil, about 2 inches underneath the ground, and you should get some then by the end of summer. Now I sowed mine in October, and hopefully I'll get mine ready for July. You might get yours now in August, September time. But yeah, plant some garlic for normal garlic, but if you have some spare bulbs or you have some small cloves left, plant them about 2 inches apart in a bed somewhere, just like you would with spring onions, and they will grow to a good 6 to 8 inches tall, even bigger. Chop off the tops and you can use them in stir fries, and they give it a nice fresh green garlic flavour. So don't think garlic is just grown for the bulbs, which will then split up for cloves for cooking. You can actually grow garlic to use it more like a garlicky flavoured spring onion. Now use up your bulbs, even if they're tiny ones, plant them all up. I'll be using these now into a little bed in a corner. If you've got some spare space, you've got plenty at the moment, it's January, but think about what's going in next. But for a salad bed, these are perfect. Grow them in a module tray now as well, like the one that I used for the broad beans. And yeah, you'll have some green garlic, and it's perfect for like stir fries, into soups, casseroles, and also on salads as well. I love green garlic. It's one of my favorite things. You chop off the top and it might even grow another shoot or another shoot after that. So yeah, it's a good thing to use these garlics up. And if you haven't got any left, pop to your supermarket, get some garlic, because it doesn't matter about growing it into a big bulb. You just want that nice green tender shoot. So get some green garlic. You won't regret it, I promise. I promise. And lastly in the salad box section is sugar snap peas. Now sugar snap peas, if you haven't grown them, I'm going to be doing a few varieties this year, like Oregon sugar pod. That's one of my favorite ones. Sugar snap peas are one of those things you can grow on the plot, do a succession now from January, February, March time, maybe even April. Keep them going, grow them near your plot, polytunnel, greenhouse, whatever, because I promise you, they're little snacks. They're really sweet, crunchy. You can also take them home and steam them. You can also roast them in a nice bit of olive oil and garlic. That's one of my favorite things to do. It's a nice little side dish. Absolutely perfect. But you can also grow the sugar snap peas and normal peas as well for the shoots. Now, you would think, when you get your packet, you think, I'm never going to use all these peas. I'm never going to use them all. So keep some aside for later on that you want to grow your peas or your sugar snaps. And you can grow some in guttering or in a big pot. Sow all them seeds in. Do it at home again because of the rodents. And just keep taking the tops off. I love pea shoots on salads, and it's one of those things that you'd think, let's just use up the seeds. Nobody wants to have spare seeds that are going to waste in your seed box. So yeah, use some sugar snap peas for the pods and also for the shoots. Now I've started building some metal raised beds at the front of the new plot, and these will be for carrots and also beetroot. So let's talk about roots. Now you can start off some carrots indoors. I'll be using the 30-litre buckets I use for potatoes. The spent compost from the potatoes I've sieved, and I'll be taking them home today, sowing the carrots and leaving them indoors for about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks. And then once they start germinating, I'll bring them over into the polytunnel, cover them with fleece, and they'll carry on growing, and you should get an early start of carrots. But then later on, I'll direct sow into these then in the start of March and April. But if you want some early carrots, sow some in a little pot at home. Make sure the pot's deep enough for the carrot, obviously. I'd say a nice 30-litre potato bucket is perfect. Sow in there about 12 to 14 carrots, and sweet candle, early nonce are my favourites. So yeah, maybe do some carrots. And also you can, like I mentioned earlier on about the beetroots, where you can grow them for salad leaves. You can also start sowing some beetroot now as well into module trays, into your greenhouse, on your windowsill, and then plant them out directly into the garden, cover them over with a net, and you should get some early beetroot. And last but not least is the one thing that I am still undecided whether or not I'm going to sow, but you can sow now, is aubergines. And also in there, I'm going to put in there some house tomatoes. Now, you're probably thinking, January tomatoes? Now, I'm going to sow some bush tomatoes. They're very, very compact little plants of tomatoes. They're called house. I'll pop the picture here now. I grow them every year. They are very small cherry tomatoes, highly packed. So if you've got a patio or a small place or a little balcony and you want to grow some tomatoes, these are perfect. They're not going to be vining up into your house, and then they'll be too big then to plant out. You can grow a nice bush tomato now indoors. I'm going to be doing house, and there might be a few other little varieties I might have in the seed box as well, but I might be doing some bush tomatoes early on in January. And going back to aubergines, I'm still undecided, like I said, whether or not I'm going to do them from seed. You need to start them now because they have got a long period of growing, and I'm still undecided whether or not I'm going to buy a plant or sow the seed. But now is the right time to sow some aubergines if you want to have some in your polytunnel, in your greenhouse. And if you're on the other side of the continent, they're the eggplants. So if you want to start sowing some now, get those eggplants, get those aubergines sowed, because they take an age. Now, the seed that you've all been waiting for is the 3 1/4 seed. Now, you're probably thinking, what is he on about? 3 1/4 seed? There is no such thing, but there is. So this year I'm going to be trying loofah seeds again. Now you're probably wondering, how is that a 3 1/4 seed? And I'll tell you about that now. So loofah seeds are quite hard, they're quite compact. They're a tiny hard black husk. Now the method is that clip off the rounded edge of a loofah seed, not the pointed edge, the rounded edge with the nail clippers. Take off the edge so that you're actually exposing the inside of the seed. Soak it overnight in lukewarm water and then place it in a container with some wet paper towel, drain it off, place all the seeds on the top, put another wet paper towel on top, close the container, leave it in a nice warm room for a week, and I promise you, between 3 to 5 days, you'll start seeing little sprouts coming out. Plant them in all into plant pots, and you need to grow them on, because just like the aubergines, they take ages to grow. Plant them on, pot them on, and you should start getting a nice viney loofah plant. Place it into a nice sunny window if you can, stake it up, and then bring it over to your polytunnel or your greenhouse then, when the frosts have passed, and then start growing it on. And then at the end of the year, you should be able to harvest some nice loofah sponges, and you can also save the seeds then for later on. But you can also make loofah soap as well from it. So that's my plan for this year. The 3 1/4 seed is the loofah seed. Clip off the rounded end and you're off to go. Whew, I'm out of breath saying all that. So all the seeds I've mentioned here, you can start now, but also it's time to start thinking about potatoes and onion sets. Now, I know you're probably thinking it's too early, but you can go to your garden centre now and it's the best time to go and get your seed potatoes and your onion sets, and I'll tell you why. So now's the best time to go to your local garden centre or nursery and pick up your seed potatoes and your onion sets, because now the varieties will be there, all the main varieties will be there, and you'll get more selection. And try and go to a garden centre or nursery where you can actually touch the potatoes, you can actually pick them out of crates rather than just ordering online from bags. And the thing that you want to do is get them just over a golf ball size. Try and get them all the same size, firm, and then take them home, pop them all into egg cartons or into module trays, let them chit onto a windowsill, give them light and also some good airflow. Do not put them in a cupboard, because they'll start then growing sprouts and taking weakness from that actual tuber. Now that potato tuber is actually a feeding force for your future plants. So don't worry about if it gets a little bit soft in the next couple of months. It will start going soft, but all it's doing is putting nutrients and feeding that tuber that's coming out of it. So don't stress about the potato if it starts going wrinkly and the chits start getting really firm on top. You want the chits to be about 1 centimetre, 2 centimetres on top. And also then make sure, like I said, keep them in light, airy conditions, because you don't want them to rot or anything. Now, onion sets. I've talked about onion seeds, and I also mentioned how sometimes they bolt, and yes, the red ones are prone for bolting, but you can still get some good varieties of onion sets now as well if you want to, and start planting up in module trays, or actually direct sow them outside in a month or two's time, but not quite now. So my suggestion would be to go there as well, like I said, if they're all free in a crate, that you can actually touch them and check that they're firm. Do not get them small and soft. Those ones don't tend to go to anything. But if you have already ordered them online and they're quite small in the bag, that's okay. I use all the firm big ones for planting out for onions, and then don't throw those tiny little onion sets away. People think, oh, we'll disregard those. Plant them up closer and use them as your first spring onions of the year. But if you are buying them online, that's okay too. Order them now so that you get the varieties you want, because a lot of the really, really popular ones go out of stock. My advice would be, though, if you want a nice salad potato ready for spring, get some shallot potatoes. They are absolutely beautiful as new potatoes, and you can also roast them as well. I love them roasted, and also love them with a pile of butter on as well. I can't wait for spring already, you can tell. But shallot potatoes is my #1 potato that I'm going to be growing this year. And the same applies for the onion sets. Make sure that they're big, firm. You don't need to plant them in a module tray straight away, but you've got them then. You've already got them. They'll store okay in a brown paper bag until you need to plant them up then in probably March time and onwards. But get the stock now while you can get the varieties you want. I hope this has been helpful, and I hope it's got you set up and ready and excited just as much as I am for spring. We're almost there now, but start preparing now. Start preparing and getting all your seeds in, getting all your seed potatoes, your onion sets ready for planting out in spring. I'm Danny, and this is Grow Up.